Hey guys, and welcome to another tutorial. Today I'd like to talk about the physiology of the exocrine pancreas, and that's what this video tutorial is going to be about. I'm not usually a physiologist, but the reason why I'm doing this tutorial is I'm planning to do a series of tutorials on the pathophysiology of acute pancreatitis. In order to fully understand that lecture, it would be really good if you had a good idea of the basic exocrine physiology of the pancreas. Otherwise it might be a little bit of a struggle. So I was just doing this video tutorial to give you a brief overview of the exocrine pancreatic physiology. It is going to be quite a brief overview, but if you want a little bit more detail, and if you're finding that things in this tutorial are not enough detail for your syllabus, then please do go away and read one of any number of great physiology books which are out there. So, with that being said, let's get a start. Actually, before I start, for this video tutorial, I'm going to try something a little bit new in terms of how I structure my lessons and how I'm going to be using the camera and how I'm going to be editing the video afterwards. This is because I've been viewing some of my older videos, and I think the transitions, they're not as smooth as they should be, and it makes makes it quite harder to watch the video itself. So for this video, I'm going to try and minimize the amount of editing that I'm going to be doing after this video, but I'm going to try and make the actual content that I'm going to be doing in front of the camera today as smooth as possible, and we'll see if that makes a difference. As ever, if you enjoyed this tutorial, please do feel free to leave a comment and with also any suggestions that you may have. Right, with that being said, let's make a start. So, as I mentioned, today we're going to be looking at the physiology of the pancreas, particularly the exocrine physiology. Right. So, before we run on to the physiology, I think it might be a good idea to cover basic anatomy of the pancreas first. I'm going to do that briefly. So, the pancreas is an organ in the abdomen, and it sits all the way at the back of the abdomen. And if you look at it, if you were to do a dissection, it will look like a flattened tongue of tissue that stretches out in front of the vertebral column. So the pancreas can be anatomically divided into different areas. So this part of the pancreas is called the head. This part is called the neck. This part is called the body. And the part towards the most distal part of the pancreas that stretches out towards the spleen, which would be somewhere like that for your reference, is called the tail. And this is the spleen. And sometimes the tail of the pancreas touches the height of the spleen. The pancreas also possesses one accessory lobe called the uncinate process. And this is quite interesting if you are studying embryology, because the pancreas, when it develops inside the fetus, develops as two distinct buds from the developing gut. And these two buds are called the pancreatic buds. And this is the ventral pancreatic bud, and this is the dorsal pancreatic bud. So the dorsal pancreatic bud goes on to eventually form the head, neck, body, and tail. But this ventral pancreatic bud forms the uncinate process. So although in the adult, the uncinate process and the rest of the pancreas appears as one organ, actually the uncinate process has a distinct embryological development. But please don't worry too much about that. We'll do that at another time covering embryology. So we split up the pancreas into these 5 parts, but it's important to remember that this splitting up of the pancreas is purely anatomical. This means that all these different parts of the pancreas have more or less exactly the same function. And if you were to look at the cells of different parts of the pancreas, say compare the cells under the microscope in the neck with the body, the microstructure looks exactly the same, and functionally they would be very, very similar. So all this division of the pancreas is purely anatomical. Right, having said that, let's now move on to look at some of the other structures which are related to the pancreas. So the pancreas, the head and other same process actually sit within the curve of the duodenum, particularly the first and the second parts of the duodenum. Okay. Also, it's important to note how I'll label this first. It's also important to note that the pancreas is something called a retroperitoneal structure. And in order to clarify what this means, organs in the abdomen can be broadly split into two groups. Some organs are interperitoneal, and some organs are described as retroperitoneal. The intraperitoneal organs are called that because they're surrounded by a layer of visceral peritoneum on pretty much almost all of their sides. Retroperitoneal organs, however, sit all the way at the back of the abdomen, and because of this, they're only covered by a single layer of peritoneum called the parietal peritoneum. So if you imagine the pancreas sitting all the way at the back of the abdomen, the retroperitoneum would actually be like a sheet that sits in front of the pancreas. And because the pancreas is located behind the sheet of parietal peritoneum, it's called a retroperitoneal structure. Okay, so that's the most basic version of the anatomy of the pancreas. Let's now quickly move on to the physiology, which is what we're here to talk about today. So the pancreas is interesting in many respects, but one of the main reasons that it's interesting is because it is both an exocrine gland and it's also an endocrine gland. Okay, I'm just going to rub out some of this so I can have a little bit more space. I'm just going to redraw over here. Okay. And that's the duodenum. And exocrine glands, by definition, are glands that secrete substances into ducts, and then these ducts drain the secreted substances onto epithelial surfaces towards the outside world. Okay, and most of the pancreas, actually, by mass, serves as exocrine function. And parts of the pancreas that have an exocrine function is called the pancreatic acini, or pancreatic acinus. And around, depending on which textbook you read, it's around 99% of the mass of the pancreas actually serves as exocrine function. Okay, right. The endocrine parts of the pancreas, the endocrine function of the pancreas actually comes from small islands of cells which are scattered throughout the pancreas. These islands of cells are scattered pretty much evenly throughout the pancreas, but some textbooks say that there are more islands towards the tail of the pancreas, but don't worry about that. Okay. And these islands of cell are called the islets of Langerhans. And actually, by mass, they only make up around 1% of the mass of the pancreas. But they're very important in the normal physiology of the human body. they're involved in secreting substances, hormones such as insulin, glucagon, among several others. And these hormones have diverse functions, such as controlling the concentration of blood sugar and also growth and development at different points in a person's life. Right. So we'll say no more about the endocrine function of the pancreas because that's for another lecture. Let's now focus on this exocrine function of the pancreas. So we said that an exocrine gland, by definition, is a gland that secretes substances into ducts that drain into the outside world, onto epithelial surfaces. Okay. So having said that, let's now briefly take a look at the ductal structure of the pancreas and how the exocrine secretions of the pancreas drain into the duodenum. Okay. So the pancreas actually has two major duct systems. One of its main ducts is called the main pancreatic duct. And this main pancreatic duct is involved in draining secretions from the unsnake process, the neck, the body, and the tail. Just realised I've rubbed off the label, so I'll just relabel these. In addition to this main pancreatic duct, the pancreas also has another smaller duct. And this duct is called the accessory pancreatic duct. Accessory because it's smaller. Okay? And this accessory pancreatic duct is responsible for draining the head of the pancreas. Show a label there. Okay? And both of these pancreatic ducts drain the pancreas and empty out into the duodenum. Now, before we go on, if you like a little bit more detail, I'd like to mention that this main pancreatic duct is also related to the common bile duct, which comes from the biliary system and the liver. Let's take a brief look at that now. So, I'd like you to imagine that this is the gallbladder. Okay. And the gallbladder gives off a duct called the cystic duct. And this cystic duct joins with the hepatic duct, which comes from the liver, which I'll draw here. And when this cystic duct and the hepatic duct join together, this is called the common bile duct, or CBD for short. Now, what the CBD does is that it travels behind the duodenum and the pancreas, but eventually it comes up and it goes behind the accessory pancreatic duct, eventually comes up and joins this main pancreatic duct. Okay. Now, at this place, where the common bile duct joins the main pancreatic duct, it's given a special name. The name, the place where these two duct systems converge, this is called the ampulla of Vater. Sometimes in textbooks you also see it called the common pancreatobiliary ampulla, but I usually prefer calling it the ampulla of Vater because it's easy to remember. Okay, so this ampulla of Vater, as I mentioned, is quite special because it's where it receives drainage from both the biliary system, from the bile duct and liver, and also receives drainage, exocrine drainage from the main pancreatic duct as well. Okay. Now, eventually the ampulla of Vater, as I mentioned, opens out into the duodenum, which allows secretions to enter the duodenum, which is part of the small intestine, and allows exposure of these digestive juices to the food that is transiting through the duodenum from the stomach. Now, another small detail that might help you to know is that this opening, around this opening of the ampulla of Vater, is a smooth muscle. And this ring of smooth muscle, when it relaxes and opens, allows secretions to empty out. Okay. And this ring of smooth muscle that controls the exit of these secretions into the duodenum is a smooth muscle called the sphincter of Oddi. And we'll see why that sphincter is important during our lecture on acute pancreatitis, which we'll do in another lecture. Great. Okay, so that's a very basic diagram of the ductal anatomy of the exocrine pancreas. Let's talk more about its microanatomy now. So, the pancreatic acini, the exocrine part of the pancreas, can actually be split into two components. One of these components is responsible for producing the digestive enzymes. Okay? And this functional part of the pancreas are called the acinar cells. Also, another cell type, which is part of the exocrine pancreas, is the ductal cells. And these ductal cells line the ducts that drain the exocrine pancreas. And what these ductal cells do is that they secrete something called hydrogen carbonate ions, HCO3-. And the reason why they do this is because the hydrogen carbonate ions react with the hydrogen ions in the acidic chyme that comes from the stomach. Remember, the contents of the stomach are acidic because the stomach produces gastric acid, which is necessary for the digestive action of gastropepsin. So when chyme from the stomach first enters the duodenum, it's highly acidic, but the duodenal enzymes work best at alkaline pH. Because of this, these ductal cells secrete hydrogen carbonate in order to neutralize the hydrogen ions and to bring the pH up to alkaline levels. And this brings the pH in the duodenum to around pH 7 or pH 8. And this alkaline pH, as I said, is the optimum pH for the action of pancreatic enzymes. These acinar cells, as I mentioned, are responsible for producing digestive enzymes. And let's briefly take a look at the digestive enzymes that are produced by these acinar cells.